So I definitely had a magic phase in my youth. Mid to late 90s cable television was lousy with new and old magic specials, and not just the big mainstream stuff like David Copperfield or Penn and Teller. No, I got down into the weeds and was familiar with the works of Melinda Sachs, Paul Daniels, Mayor Yadid, Faye Presto, and many, many more. I never really tried to master any tricks myself, but this is probably the closest I've ever related to a Goosebumps protagonist in all the time I've been doing this series. Tim Swanson loves magic. He loves watching it, he loves performing it, and tries to stage little shows for his elementary school classmates. The only problem is that his little sister Ginny is always hanging around, and Ginny A loves giving away Tim's tricks right after he does them, and B has been taking karate lessons and has apparently learned the 5-point death punch, which is why Tim can't shoo her away. She just karate chops her way into any situation. Imagine Tara from the Cuckoo Clock of Doom, but now with the skill set of Marvel's Black Widow, and that's Ginny. Tim's favorite magician of all time is Amaz-O, and it just so happens that Amaz-O's in town this week, performing at the Midnight Mansion nightclub. However, tickets are $25, which for a 12-year-old is like $6,000, so he'll probably miss it. To take his mind off it, he takes his friend Foz to the local magic store, run by a man named Mr. Malik. Uh-oh, a specialty store. If the Haunted Mask and Revenge of the Lawn Gnomes is anything to go by, all specialty stores are secretly evil. Well, maybe not this time. There's some hijinks involving a trick sword and a prop guillotine, but things seem to be on the up and up this time. Mr. Malik does have a soft spot for Tim, even if the kid can't afford to buy anything, and it just so happens that Malik has 2 tickets to Amaz-O's show tomorrow night, which he gives to Tim for free. Tim is excited, but when he gets home, his parents say no. The show's at 10 p.m. on a school night. That's just not going to fly. Besides, the parents are really too stressed out to be dealing with frivolous things like this, as this book seems to take place in the Grand Theft Auto universe. I had a terrible day at work today, Mom grumbled, ripping into her chicken. She's a high school guidance counselor. First, Michael Lamb threatened to beat up another boy. His teacher yelled at him, and he threatened to beat her up too. When I tried to talk to him, he said he'd beat me up. I had to call the police. That's a piece of cake next to my day, Dad complained. Dad sells cars. Some guy came in and said he wanted to test drive the new minivan. I handed him the keys and he took off. He never came back. He stole the car. God damn, this town needs a RoboCop. Well, Tim is bummed that he can't go, but then he gets a brilliant idea. I'll just sneak out. So on the night of the show, we get a scene of Tim slowly descending the stairs, trying not to wake up his parents, who I guess go to bed at 8. Once Tim is clear of the stairs, he walks out the door and bam! There's Ginny waiting for him thanks to her mystical ninja teleport powers. Ginny threatens to expose Tim unless he brings her along, which he agrees to. So they hop onto their bikes and head to the Midnight Mansion. We get a few fun details about this mansion, about how it belonged to a rich woman who let it fall apart, and despite her affluence, she spent her days in rags eating peanut butter out of a jar. A real Miss Havisham situation. Anyway, she died and the house got turned into a nightclub. That's not at all relevant to the plot, but as we'll see, the book is pretty sparse on spooky, scary elements, so I'll take what I can get. Tim and Ginny, a 12-year-old and 10-year-old, managed to talk their way into a nightclub without parents. Amaz-O comes out on the stage, classic magician attire, tuxedo, cape, top hat. People applaud. Amaz-O bows, and then does this. Amaz-O took a step forward and leaned toward me. What's he doing? I thought. Is he going to talk to me? Amaz-O leaned closer. His face was right next to mine. I cowered in my seat. He scowled and whispered in a deep, menacing voice. Disappear. Disappear. Excuse me? I gasped. Disappear, he whispered. I'm going to make you disappear at the end of the show. I will ask for volunteers, and I will choose you. Okay, so Amaz-O is going to use Tim for a trick. Got it. But imagine how this looks for the rest of the audience. Amaz-O makes his entrance. They applaud, and then instead of jumping into a trick, the magician gets quiet and then gets into the personal space of a 12-year-old boy and whispers a conversation with him for like 30 seconds. I mean, that's just poor stagecraft. Anyway, Amaz-O gets into his act proper. He makes an alarm clock float in the air, pulls doves out of his hat, threads a bunch of needles in his mouth, some classic magic stuff. During all that time, Amaz-O has a rabbit that just sits on a table and watches the performance calmly. Finally, it's time for the disappearing act. Tim is summoned on stage and put into a large box. The box is then spun around for a bit before a trap door opens up underneath, sending Tim down a chute into the mansion's basement. Tim thinks it's pretty cool, being part of the show, finding out how this trick works, but then nobody shows up to guide him out of the basement, and the door is locked. It's not locked very well, and Tim manages to break it and get out, but something wicked is afoot. Maybe. Probably. Actually, no. Wandering the basement and back halls of the mansion, Tim finds both Amaz-O's trunk of tricks and the door to his dressing room. Tim knocks, hoping to say how big of a fan he is, but all he gets is a rude, "Beat it, punk." Put off that his hero is so rude, Tim has a moment of anger and grabs the trunk of tricks and finds his way out of the mansion. Something worth pointing out is that this book is pretty light on typical scary things, so we get some really mundane chapter-ending cliffhangers. For example, when Tim gets out of the mansion and meets up with Ginny, she looks around and, oh no, her bike is gone. And then at the beginning of the next chapter, oh wait, no, it's over there. The kids get home and agree to hide the trunk in the attic and look at it later. However, Tim can't resist, so he goes to the attic, opens the trunk, and finds one of Amaz-O's coats. He puts it on, but things start wriggling around. Lots and lots of snakes, in fact, hiding in the pockets, slithering about. This is, for the record, the only real scare in the entire book. It turns out the snakes are fake, little mechanical things. It's all an illusion. Tim puts the coat back in the trunk and goes to sleep. Most of the rest of the book are just runaway magic hijinks, not scares. Foz comes over and he, Tim, and Ginny play around with the tricks, but they produce effects clearly supernatural. Tim breaks out the ball in cups, but the cups start to produce a seemingly infinite amount of balls. Then an infinite amount of doves start flying out of a top hat. Unlike the snakes, this seems to be real magic, and despite witnessing miracles from God, the kids don't seem all that bothered by it. Ginny's mostly complaining about how hungry she is, so when she finds a carrot in the trunk, she takes a bite. The effects are immediate. The carrot dropped to the grass. Ginny's nose twitched. Then she began to shrink. As she shrank, her hair turned from blonde to white. Her nose turned pink. White fur and whiskers sprouted from her face. She grew smaller, furrier, whiter. "I don't believe it," Foz gasped. "Your sister? She's a rabbit!" Ginny sat in the grass, twitching her little pink nose. She stared at me with her rabbity eyes. She waved her little paws and made angry, rabbity noises. "Man, she is steamed," Foz cried. For the record, this book came out 3 months before the first Animorphs book, so I'm afraid you can't sue Applegate. So Ginny's stuck as a bunny. The kids have no choice but to go back to the Midnight Mansion and ask Amaz-O for help. They're shocked to find out that the nightclub is closed at 2 in the afternoon. They sneak in through a side door, find Amaz-O's dressing room, and peek inside. There's Amaz-O. Wait, why isn't he moving or responding to us? They investigate, and it turns out that Amaz-O is a human-sized wooden puppet. What's going on? Then the rabbit from the show walks in and starts talking. It turns out that he is Amaz-O, having been turned into a rabbit ages ago by a sorcerer named Frank. Yes, giving the sorcerer a mundane name is an intentional joke that I'm pretty sure Stein nicked off from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Anyway, Amaz-O tells the kids that the magic will wear off on its own in half an hour. Foz leaves with Ginny, and Amaz-O asks Tim if he wants to be part of his magic act. Despite all that's happened, Tim is still a huge fan of Amaz-O, so he agrees. So Amaz-O turns him into a rabbit, to be pulled out of a hat. The monkey paw curls a finger, be careful what you wish for, the end. So this isn't a horror story. I know Goosebumps fails at being horror quite often, but this isn't even attempting to be horror. Kids steal magicians' trunk of tricks, They get out of control, someone gets turned into a bunny. That's a cartoon plot. That's something you'd see happen on DuckTales or Maggie and the Ferocious Beast or Muppet Babies. If this wasn't a Goosebumps book, it could be sold as some Captain Underpants silliness, and I wouldn't have as much to complain about. I mean, it's poorly paced. There's a whole multi-chapter scene I didn't even mention, where Tim puts on a show and loses the rabbit he's using for his trick. It adds nothing to the story. You didn't miss it when I was summarizing the book. It's not a setup for anything, it just fills pages. Okay, so I've got a big task ahead of me for the rewrite. Not only do I have to make it good, I have to make an actual horror story out of it. And to do that, I'm going to have to jettison the back half of the book. The kids mess around with tricks, hijinks ensue thing is fine for a comedy, but it doesn't work well for spooky, scary stories. So let's focus on the weirder elements of the first half. Let's consider some questions. Question 1. Why did Mr. Malik give Tim free tickets for the show? He would know it would be on a school night. Tim never buys anything, and those 2 tickets are worth $50. Question 2. Why was Tim locked in the basement after the Vanishing Act? It implies either gross negligence from Amaz-O and the staff of the Midnight Mansion, or something more sinister. So let's roll with it. Tim is into magic, and I mean actually into magic. I know asking Stein to do research would probably make him break out into hives, but if this book is about magicians and stage illusions, then Tim should be getting into the nitty-gritty of it. I want to hear about palming, sleight of hand, misdirection, forcing a move, blind shuffles, French drops, all that good stuff. It makes Tim actually good at magic. That's important. In this version, Amaz-O is still Tim's hero, but Amaz-O is a lot older. He started his act back in the 40s or even earlier. The book starts off the same. Amaz-O is in town, but Tim can't afford to go. He goes to Mr. Malik's magic shop, and Malik offers Tim the free tickets. Tim sneaks out with Ginny, they go to the Midnight Mansion and see the show. Amaz-O makes Tim volunteer for the Vanishing Act, and Tim winds up in the locked basement. Only this time, Tim can't get out on his own. He's truly stuck. That is, until 2 big guys with dead eyes walk into the room all zombie-like, mumbling about having to collect the kid. Tim manages to hide and sneak past them, and finds himself locked inside the Midnight Mansion. It's a dark, eerie place, and the staff have been hypnotized into ghoul servants. Soon, Tim learns the truth when he finds Amaz-O's dressing room and overhears a conversation between Amaz-O and his rabbit. Amaz-O is a real guy. He's not a puppet in this version, but all his talent and magical powers have been bestowed on him by this sorcerer who's been trapped in this rabbit's body for centuries. Amaz-O is getting too old. People aren't paying as much for his shows. It's time for Amaz-O to retire and for the sorcerer to pick a new talented magician to make his slave. He scouted out and selected Tim and hypnotized Mr. Malik so that he'd give Tim the tickets. Or maybe Mr. Malik is in on it. Either way. What follows is a chase around the mansion. Tim trying to find a way out. The sorcerer and his hypnotized henchmen chasing after him. It's a little bit Die Hard, where Tim has to be clever and use his magic skills. He palms keys, misdirects guards, distracts with some little smoke bombs from his magic kit or something. Meanwhile, the sorcerer has gone full Mysterio, using magic powers to warp reality, summon snakes, little monsters, make a spider grow to the size of a dog, really play with it. At some point, Ginny catches up with Tim, and actually uses her karate skills to help save the day. Amaz-O wants his rabbit master gone, so he works with the kids. It seems that there's a magic hat that, if you trick the sorcerer into, it will trap him for good. They pull that off. I'll tell you how once Scholastics pays me. And the day is saved. The staff is freed from their mind enslavement, Amaz-O can retire in peace, and Tim wasn't captured and enslaved. A few days pass and there's a knock on the door. A Hollywood agent has arrived with a movie contract for Ginny. Wait, what? Well, it seems Ginny stole the magic hat when they left, and pulled out the sorcerer. And the sorcerer has decided to pivot to a new career, making Ginny into the world's biggest child action star. Ginny walks downstairs, holding the rabbit, who is clearly in control of her. The rabbit winks. The end. So there you go. Better plot flow, more room for scares, and a twist that's not even outside of what Stein usually does. As is, the book is totally forgettable, and just not even close to horror. Oh, and the title sucks. I give Bad Hair Day a 2/3 empty bottle of hand sanitizer out of 10.